Let's see what we have today from our question and answers. And you know you can always get these as podcasts and on our question and answer page in their written format. So what do we have today? How do you convince a 6-year-old that being really silly is not cool and funny, but just annoying? I love this because I have a 6-year-old who's going through this as well. And I think the best analogy to understand this is that a sense of humor is much like a sense of style. It is something that you need to incorporate your own personality and feelings into, as well as society's norms, as well as your family's norms. So there's a lot going on there, a lot to gauge. And let's keep in mind that adults don't always get that right on both accounts, the sense of style and the sense of humor. So we've got to cut our kids a little bit of slack, but I want you to really have that analogy top of mind, that sense of style of that teenager coming down the steps. You know, for the boy, it could be the pants hanging too low, or for the girl, it could be the skirt being a little too short, and knowing the reaction to give. So keep that at the top of the mind when you're thinking about a sense of humor. Really, what the child is doing is trying to get your attention, number one, and trying to use role models, imitate those role models. Now let's think about a 6-year-old's frame of reference here. Cartoons, other shows with large slapstick humor, over-the-top antics, very physical types of things, you know, changing their voices into more noises and just really loud over-the-top behavior. And it makes me smile just because as I'm saying those things about the television characters, I'm sure you're reflecting that this is what your child's doing, throwing themselves all over the place, you know, screeching, doing these other things, and it's just not funny. But that's what they're doing. They're imitating a role model and they're seeking your attention. So how do we change the behavior? You could turn off the TV, but I don't think that's your solution. You could say what you want to say, such as, that's just not funny. You're not being funny. I don't like that. But as we go back to that example about the sense of style, I think we all know the reaction you're going to get when your teenager comes down the stairs and you say, you are not wearing that. You're going to get a very defensive reaction. And a 6-year-old, even though they're not quite as sophisticated to start defending their sense of humor in an articulate way, they're probably just going to register it as yet another no, you can't do that, or that wasn't acceptable, on the long range of no's in their life, from don't eat with your fingers, don't wear that, don't pick up this, don't get paint on your clothes. So it's really not going to teach them or develop them in any way. So what we want to do is observe the behavior and modify it, helping them to reach their goal too. They want to be funny and they want your attention and they want it in a positive way. So let's use what we always do, which is praise. We're going to let that child know when they're actually being funny, because it happens all the time. They're hysterical. They say things that are funny. They have expressions that are funny. They do things that are funny. Take those moments and point them out. Reinforce the positive behavior. So when they make that comment at dinner time that's genuinely funny, and my good statement for that is I do a lot of sharing. So when my children do something funny, I know I'm going to want to call a friend or call their grandparents and, oh, you're not going to believe what they did. Prior to doing that, recognize that you want to tell others about it. Tell your child about it. Tell he or she how funny they are being and what you admire about that. Oh, that was so clever. That was so witty. You know, that was really smart. I love how you put that together. And recognize that behavior. Positively reinforce that behavior. They're looking for your attention, so give it to them for good things. And in the negative, when they do that moment of loud behavior, inaudible behavior, throwing themselves on the floor, at the wall, hitting themselves, these types of things that you just don't find acceptable, address the behavior and not the intent. Address the fact that, yeah, I couldn't understand what you were saying. Can you use your words and try to express that again? Same thing, you know, I don't think it's appropriate for you to throw yourself up against the wall. That type of behavior, you know, is a little bit wild, and that's reserved for playing outside. So just address that right there, you know, as you would any other behavior, playing with a ball in the house, why you don't think it's appropriate. Just address the behavior, but not the intent, not giving that attacking statement of, you were not funny. So let's take it one step further. Trying to explain to them why were you acting this way? So you've dealt with the action, what they did, and then just follow up with that question. You know why. We're playing a little dumb here, but you know why they were acting that way. They were trying to be funny, and they'll be honest with you. They're going to say, oh, I was trying to be funny, or you can prompt it a little bit. Why did you act that way? Were you trying to make me laugh? Were you trying to be funny? And they'll honestly respond yes. And that's when, once again, we want to reinforce the positive behavior and explain to them, you know what I like when you're funny, and what you do is when you say this or when you act that way. Once again, praise that you brought earlier, reinforcing what you liked. And I'm a big fan of the do-over. If in that moment they were looking to be funny and looking to get your attention, give them a do-over. Give them a suggestion of what to do differently. Same way, let's go back to that fashion analogy. Same way, when the child comes down, it's not enough to tell them, I don't like what you're wearing. To just say, oh, were you trying to, look a little bit casual for where we're headed today? Out to eat or whatever? I really like those jeans and that blue top. It looks great on you. So just make a different suggestion that involves some praise and some positive reinforcement for their decisions. And keep in mind, just like style, a sense of humor is not going to change overnight. It's a process. I know several adults, and I'll put myself on this list, who still put their foot in their mouth when trying to be funny, who still make a guffaw, who still have embarrassing moments that aren't appropriate. It is very challenging to develop that sense of humor. Once again, you've got to take into consideration your own personality, society's norms, your comfort level with all of that. From moment to moment, you have to take into consideration your audience. It's a pretty sophisticated thing that develops for our entire lives. So when you're thinking about that, cut your child a little break, have a little sympathy for them, and then reinforce those positive behaviors, those things you admire, reinforce those funny moments with them, and help them in that way to capitalize on those and really develop their sense of humor.